Hey, Craig, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. Nice to get on the right side of things with the walk-off win yesterday.
It was. It felt like we've seen that game played, 25 times this season, and unfortunately, we've been on the wrong end of it too many times. So, I don't want to paper over some of the other problems that we all saw yesterday, but anytime you have a chance to win a major league game, you need to take advantage of that.
Teams generally have an identity. And so I wanted to ask you this morning, what would you say this team does well?
Yeah, I think we're struggling with that exact question. I can tell you what we came out of spring training wanting to do well. We thought we had a deep lineup that was gonna hit the ball out of the park, but we were going to be able to compete in 2 strike counts and push runs aboard. We're going to play clean defense. We were very, very deliberate in trying to improve our defense, especially on the infield. We knew we had a good defensive outfield, and we thought we were going to pitch, and we thought that starting pitching, was going to be a real strength of this team. I think we've seen it in glimpses, but we haven't gotten the consistent pitching that we had all hoped for.
I mean, are you basically just like flummoxed? I mean, this team was 500 last year and added Crochet and Bregman and a legit closer, and are somehow currently much worse.
Yeah, and we are constantly asking questions around what we need to do, what we can do better, how we create an identity to this team. For every starting pitcher that has shown improvement this year, and Crochet obviously leads that list, there are some guys that have been inconsistent and struggled. And, Bregman, before he got hurt, was everything we could have asked. Abreu got off to a really hot start. Rafi has been, productive in the middle of the lineup as we had expected, but then they're losing Tristan for the season, and guys that haven't really found their stride yet have also plagued us. So I feel like for every opportunity to say this guy's giving us a little bit more than we thought, unfortunately there's someone so far whose performance has been inconsistent.
Craig, when you look at where you are in this situation, you could potentially be out of it by the All-Star break. Cora says he doesn't know what to do or how to change things. Is there a possibility, with everything being on the table, that you guys might make a managerial change if things don't get better?
We're always going to be anchored to what is best for the team, and we have a lot of confidence in Alex as the leader of this group. He's won in Boston as a player. He's won in Boston as a manager. We have conversations daily about everything that we can do to get us back on track. That's where our focus is, and that's where it will remain.
Do you have full confidence that he has what it takes to turn this season around?
I do. And when a team is struggling like we are and is falling short of the lofty expectations that we had set for ourselves, that fans had set for us, I think we all feel a sense of responsibility and accountability, but we've got to figure this out. And that's where we're spending all of our time right now.
Do you have accountability to maybe reevaluate the analytics you're using? Maybe it's not working in the way that you had hoped. Have you, especially with Driveline, the offense, anything about what you have done that you feel like the front office needs to change in terms of the information you're having Cora synthesize in game?
Constantly. I think we are and have to be constantly asking the same questions about our tools and models and information and philosophies. And a real challenge is trying to understand whether you are not executing the plan that you have in place successfully, or you have the wrong plan. But I don't think, given what is happening on the field, any of us is in a position to say that we've got everything figured out. And that is true on the development side. It's true with our big league team.
Curtis brought up the Driveline approach to player development. With this team leading the league in strikeouts with runners in scoring position, is it time to reassess that and flip the switch there?
Well, like I said, we're constantly reassessing. But if I were to, to say to you, well, what is the driveline approach, and what part of that is try to, ensure that with two strikes you're not putting the ball in play, especially with runners in scoring position. Like, what would be the answer to that? I think there's probably a mischaracterization around, what exactly that means. So would love, kind of in your mind, what does that mean?
I'm glad you're here to clear it up. I mean, I think if there's a misperception, it exists because you've intentionally gone out and hired everybody from the organization. And so we assume that that's approach when it comes to the hitting development of young players. If it's not, correct me.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, this approach is spoken about like it's the boogeyman. But if I were to say, the approach that we have to teaching offenses to say, hey, we've got to start with making great swing decisions, right? We've got to understand the pitches that we need to swing at. When we swing at them, we need to put them in play. And when we put them in play, we want to hit the ball hard enough that it matters. And when we get to two strikes, we need to compete like all hell to put the ball in play, especially when we have runners in scoring position. Is that something that you would say sounds like, kind of we've got the wrong approach here, or misunderstanding, around what's important? I think we need our hitters to be extremely competitive in the box. We also need them to understand, what type of balls in play tend to produce runs. And that's the approach that we've got.
Craig, if we could go back and look at pitching from Tuesday, taking Chapman out after 8 pitches, what was the reason behind that?
We're trying to make sure that we're monitoring our reliever workloads, and obviously our bullpen has they've been ridden pretty hard, over the last couple of weeks, as the starting pitching hasn't consistently pitched deep into games, and Chapman is a guy who hasn't gone back out for a second inning, in quite some time, and we want to make sure that we have him fresh and available to help us win as many games as we can this year.
Craig, have you reevaluated the approach in terms of whether it's workload for Crochet or in-game strategy, considering you're now 30-34 and the season could spiral? So do you have to reevaluate just the day-to-day approach because of where you find yourself in the standings?
I think we do. And I think we want to balance the information that we have available to us each day that could affect that night's game with keeping one eye at least on the longer term. And we saw with Crochet, obviously he had the shortened start against New York based on some information that we had available to us. And the other side of that was being able to push him in a game against Atlanta deeper than he had previously. And that's the balance. I think it's imperfect, and all of these decisions, they warrant questioning. But whether it's me or Alex or anybody else, we're making the best decisions that we can with the information that we have in front of us.
Craig, a little, help or insight. Dial up the suicide squeeze, especially when you got speedsters on third base. Maybe you bring that. Maybe you bring that back. But the one question,
that's from an all-city catcher. By the way.
all-city catcher.
Jermaine Wiggins
puts a lot of pressure on the pitcher and catcher, especially with your speedsters. And you guys have a lot of speed.
Wiggy was great at blocking the plate, if you know what I mean.
But the one question I have, as a former player who's been on teams that weren't very good, how do you make sure that these guys aren't mentally checking out because they see there's really no light at the end of the tunnel, or that light is starting to fade when you're talking about making the postseason?
Yeah, there's a certain level of pride and competitiveness that anybody who plays for the Red Sox and puts the Red Sox jersey on to hold, and that pride needs to prevent anyone from giving up, from kind of throwing in the towel on a season that in reality is still early, not early enough that we should be making excuses or think that things are going to turn around without kind of taking consequential steps to make sure that happens. But to play in the major leagues is a privilege. To put on this uniform is a privilege, and we we need to hold our players accountable. They need to hold us accountable, and they need to hold each other accountable to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Nesson removed the footage, so I can't watch it and figure it out. Just from your perspective, what happened yesterday with Jose Flores and Tyler Anderson?
Yeah, that's a situation where when emotions are running high and there's probably frustration boiling over, that adults kind of got into a heated conversation. I think best probably to leave it at that and know that both sides have moved on.
Why was the video removed on social media, or do you not know?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't have much insight or control over that.
When it comes to videos online, there were videos of Devers taking grounders at shortstop. We were all kind of scratching our head about that. Do you know why he was doing that?
So he's taken ground balls typically at third once a week, a couple times a week, just to get out there and be around the team and keep moving. Why he chose to move over a little bit to shortstop, I'm not totally sure, but I would not read too much into that.
Alex Cora said last week, I don't know the exact day, that, quote, Devers is not having it, unquote, when it comes to playing the field. How frustrating has this been for you, given the injuries that have built up and his apparent lack of a desire to try and jump in?
Yeah, there's frustration over a lot of things, most notably just not winning enough games and trying to do everything that we possibly can to put the team in a position to win more games. These decisions they're never simple, and the conversations are ongoing. And I understand that we're dealing with humans and, all of the things that come along with that, but we'll continue to have conversations, and make sure that those are ongoing, because again, any time we have a chance to do something that we think helps the team, I just have to remain anchored to that.
But does it frustrate you that he doesn't want to do something that would help the team?
I think best to keep that opinion to myself and in conversation between Rafi and me, or Rafi and the team. And probably instead would shift the focus to the fact that Rafi is finding a way to contribute to this team, right? He's doing it by hitting in the middle of the order. But if there's an opportunity to help this team in other ways, I'm going to remain anchored to trying to push that.
Mandatory Roman Anthony question of the week. When?
Yeah, and it's a very fair question to ask. The decision-making criteria haven't really changed, which is, when is it best for Roman? When is it best for the team? And I understand that we're not winning as many games as we should be. And, at times the lineup is struggling. But also we need to make sure that there is a very clear runway for Roman to come up and contribute. And we have to balance what that looks like with the number of moving pieces required to get us there.
Craig, it seems like that you and Cora are kind of on the same page to a certain extent, and that's most, GMs and head coaches. But at the end of the day, there has to be a final decision maker when you guys don't see eye to eye. Is that you, or is that Cora when it comes to bringing guys up, or maybe guys playing a certain position? Who's the final decision maker?
Yeah, Alex and I have really productive conversations about these things all of the time. Ultimately, as it relates to transactions and who the 26 guys are on our roster, the final decision making authority lies with me. But I feel like if I'm doing this job well, decisions are not made because I say so, but because we have passionate debates and conversations around what's best for the team, and then we pick a direction and we all commit to it.
All right, Craig, thank you as always for taking the time. We'll talk to you again soon.
For sure. Thank you.